There we go. Well, hello and welcome to everyone who's on the call, and for anyone who might be watching this back at a later date. Thanks so much for joining us and making the time today as we talk about really important topic of storytelling. We know it's a really important part of an effective digital communication strategy, and I know lots of you are looking to develop in the area of storytelling. For some of you, it might be familiar, it might be something you do a lot of, but for others, it might be brand new. So we're going to look at how we approach storytelling as nonprofits, how we do it in a really impactful way, and in a way that's going to make a difference so the communications that you share really reach and resonate with your target audiences as well. So we'll have a quick look at our agenda and see what we've got planned for today. So we're going to be really looking at how you can showcase the impact of your organisations through digital narratives. So we're going to talk about the power of storytelling, what makes a good story. We'll cover the different elements that go into digital storytelling and how to build those narratives. We'll also look at some examples of different stories. We'll have a bit of a discussion about what you think works well and what doesn't. And we'll think about best practices as well. And we also have a new tool to show you to help you creating your stories, reviewing your stories. So we'll tell you more about that when we get to it. And then we'll have time for next steps, hopefully a quiz if we have time at the end too. But we'll make sure that we save time for any questions and answers. Now, as always, do feel free to put questions in the chat or the Q&A section of Zoom as we go through the session. Always love to hear from you, any thoughts and experiences to share. So don't feel you need to save those to the end. But before we get started, we'll just quickly introduce ourselves. It's great to see some of those introductions coming through in the chat. Hi to Florence and Zach and Elizabeth. I'm sure you are beginning to recognise everyone's names and faces by now, but my name is Jasmine and I'm the digital training lead here at level.We'll. I've worked in digital marketing for a number of years at various organisations. I've worked particularly within social media. So storytelling on social media is something that's really important, but also can take lots of different forms as well. And we'll talk about what that can look like later on in the session. But that's something that I've been able to experience for different organisations, some large and small, helping out some smaller nonprofits do that as well. So yeah, great to be with you today. Really looking forward to talking about this topic. And I also realised that we're just halfway through your bridge programme now, which the time is flying by. And yeah, we'll have some more updates to share with regards to that later on, but hopefully you'll all be booking in your next sessions to have your one-to-ones with your coaches very soon as well. But I will hand over to Sabina now to introduce herself to the group too. Over to you, Sabina.
Thanks, Jasmine, and hi everyone. Great to see you online today. For those of you who don't know me, I am one of your digital communication coaches on the team here at level. So I've got the joy of working with you throughout your bridge journey during these live sessions and in your one-to-ones, and by developing your e-learning content on level Academy. And my background is also in the nonprofit sector. I worked for 12 years at a conservation charity in the UK, covering all things social media, website optimization, campaigning, both on and offline, and storytelling really wove through all of those roles. It was really integral to the success of everything. So a really interesting topic, really looking forward to diving into it today with you. We're also joined by Roisin from the level team today. She's keeping an eye on the chat and the Q&A, so do reach out to her if you have any questions or need any access or technical support. So those are our introductions. Let's take a look at our learning objectives for today. So hopefully by the end of this session, you'll understand the importance of digital storytelling, and you'll also learn digital storytelling best practices. So what you need to consider when it comes to creating stories and sharing them on your channels. Finally, we'd like you to be able to identify storytelling opportunities for your upcoming activities and campaigns, and really leave today feeling able to start creating and sharing your own stories. So before we do begin looking into the power of storytelling, we have a quick poll question for you, which I'm going to bring up on your screen. Bear with me just a second. There we go. So that should be launching for you now. Asking, do you currently use storytelling in your online content? And if you scroll down, there's a second question asking, how confident do you feel currently around telling your organisation's story online? So if you could let us know where you're currently at with your storytelling journey by voting in that poll, that will be really interesting for us to be able to reflect that throughout today's session. I can see we have got some votes coming through already. Some people are not sure what they're currently doing in terms of storytelling, and no worries at all if that is you. We will be able to give you lots and lots of tools and resources today that you can then go away and apply if you need to, or review your current storytelling. And in terms of confidence, it looks like it's a bit of a spread across the scale, really. Some of you are feeling pretty confident, some of you are at the lower end. So wherever you are on that scale, hopefully we continue to move you even higher by the end of today's masterclass. So whilst I'll leave that poll open just a little bit longer so everyone has a chance to vote, but let's do a very quick icebreaker to get you all warmed up. So for those of you who voted in that poll to let us know that you are already sharing storytelling content, we'd love to know what stories do you already share? Do you share service user stories, staff stories, behind the scenes stories? And how do you package up your stories? Are they in long form text like blogs or website articles, or do you share stories through video content? Do you use imagery? And if you're not yet using storytelling or you're not sure, let us know the kinds of stories you'd like to share. So I would love to invite you to come off mute, tell us a little bit about your storytelling, or if you would rather post it in the chat, feel free to type away and we'll keep an eye on that too. So would anybody like to be brave and break the ice? Come off mute and tell us about your storytelling. Hi, Florence, would you like to go ahead?
Oh, break days. Sure, sure. So I'm an organizer with Bread for the World. So I work out in the field. So stories is an integral part of how we advocate, working alongside the constituents from multiple states to share how a program or a policy impacts them or how it would impact them if it didn't exist. So storytelling is a big part of that. And then storytelling about who we are as an organization is a big part of how we represent the organization, right? The history of the organization, how we were founded, what we believe in, is, again, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that really does. Great to hear those different kinds of stories that you're telling and how integral and important they are to your organization. Do you find there's any kind of the way that you present your stories that goes down better with your audiences? Like, do you use video content, or is it written? Is it images? Is it a mix of everything?
It's a mix of everything. And when it comes to constituent stories, they're authentic, right?
Mhm.
They're real, they're not rehearsed. But like I just did a video to just thank people in the Southeast that have collaborated with us and have been impacted by hurricanes. So, and that was done in video form. So yeah, we use all of the above.
Oh, amazing. Glad to hear that. Great stuff. If you would like to post links to any of your stories in the chat so everybody could check them out, that would be amazing. But if not, do not worry. Thank you so much for kicking off our icebreaker, Florence. Would anybody else like to share a little bit about their use of storytelling? I can see Sherry's just posted in the chat saying it's on LinkedIn and it's very impactful. Amazing. I'm going to go and check that out after this call then. Would anybody else like to come off mute and talk a bit about their storytelling? If not, not to worry. Thank you so much, Florence, for doing our icebreaker. And if anybody is typing away in the chat, I will keep an eye on that and we can always come back to this. But let's keep moving on to talk about the power of storytelling. And for that, I will hand you over to Jasmine.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And yeah, I feel like what you were sharing, Florence, really helpfully introduces what I'm going to share. So that was very nice, very seamless. But yeah, we are talking about the potential that storytelling has to have a real impact on how we engage with our audiences. And we know that storytelling is the most powerful way that you can attract support to your organization, and also to encourage your audience to donate or support you in other ways. And that's because stories bring people together and they build empathy, emotion, they build trust and loyalty. And I think they do that through the way that you tell your stories. And that's something that I think is really interesting that Florence mentioned about telling them authentically. And that's something we'll come on to, but something that's really, really important. So what does storytelling mean for nonprofit organizations? Because really, storytelling is a marketing tactic, but at the heart of storytelling is the idea that it helps you to build really strong relationships between you and your audience. So you're exchanging knowledge and stories, you're inspiring emotions, and you're prompting people to take action. And it's a way of connecting with people, with all your different audiences, and bringing to life the brilliant work that you do. the life-changing impact that you have, and also inviting other people to be part of that story and to help make a difference through supporting your organization and getting involved in the work in some way. People really want to connect with stories, stories about real people, real experiences, and that's what you have access to at your organization. So hopefully after today, you'll feel inspired to think about how you can share those stories on your digital channels to help people feel inspired and encouraged and motivated to support you. And if it's something you're already doing, then it'll be a great chance to have a review and reflect on what you're currently doing and get maybe some inspiration from the group about what you might like to do as well. And by utilizing specific frameworks and the digital tools that are available to you, you can really become powerful digital storytellers and share your organization's story in the best way possible. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today, because you're all doing incredible work with your specific communities. And so it's really important to think about how you can showcase that work to reach more people, whether that's service users, volunteers, supporters, and particularly donors as well. And even if you already have a really strong donor base, it's really important to tell them the impact their donations have made, to help people to know that they're making a difference, and also inspiring them to become advocates for you as well. So really equipping them with stories that they want to share with other people too. So it's a really great opportunity to really share the impact of the work that you're doing, and also spotlight different individuals involved in your organization in various ways. And we know that in all sectors, so it's not just the nonprofit sector, but in all sectors, the best communicators are storytellers. And the way that we share and tell stories means that that information and those stories find their way into our hearts and minds, and they help us to learn from each other's experiences. They can be a really powerful tool for raising awareness, for mobilizing volunteers, building trust with donors, supporters, and service users, and particularly with help with fundraising. And that's because stories influence people. They influence how they feel and how they think, and they help you to build trust. And according to studies from Harvard University, this is because a narrative has an impact on our brain, which promotes the production of oxytocin, which is a hormone associated with trust. So it's like we're really naturally wired to respond to storytelling better than other forms of content. And it's also things that are really memorable, because other studies have shown that the human mind is 22 times more likely to remember facts if those facts are told as part of a story. And we often remember a good story for much longer than we might remember a statistic or a fact or a figure. I often think about the things that I, at the end of the day, will want to talk to my friends about, things that I've seen online, talk about over dinner. They're usually stories. They might be things that have moved me, entertained me. Often it's a funny story, a funny video, or something really moving. But it's most likely stories that I've seen on social media that are the things that I remember after I've closed down the apps and I've moved on to do something else. So when you're sharing statistics about your work or information about the problem that you're working to solve, always think about how you can link that into a story. Maybe that's a community story or an individual story, but think about humanizing those figures and numbers so that that information then really stays with your supporters and potential supporters. And that can help move people from being supporters into donors, and to keep them engaged with you as well. People often love to hear updates and see updates shared on social media and through emails and things like that. So it's another really great way of keeping people engaged. And if that information then stays with people, aligns to your mission and your work, then this helps them to be motivated to support your organization, because the stories that you're telling will demonstrate your impact and will help them remember that it's really important to get behind the work that you do and really support your cause. And we'll have a bit of a look at why storytelling is important, because we know that they have the power to spread your mission and impact, but also inspire people to act. But they're also a valuable tool to help supporters and donors understand the context in which you are working. You can really talk about the challenges that your service users or your nonprofit are facing, and they set the scene for your organization, because you have to explain the problem to explain why your organization exists. So what's the problem that you're working to solve? And think about how you can draw out stories that illustrate this and give your audience the context for why your organization exists. Because once they know what the problem is and how you're solving the problem, then they may want to be part of that solution themselves and become part of that story. And that links really nicely to, I was talking to a participant earlier about reviewing their website, and what they realized they needed to do was articulate the need and then articulate what they were doing in order to really demonstrate to people that the work that they were doing was solving a problem and to help people get on board with that. And we also know that people make decisions on an emotional level. Logic is obviously very important as well, but it's often emotion that can move people and make people think that they want to support an organisation or give or donate in some way. So it's really important to have that emotive element and connect the data with the why and the purpose of the work that you're doing. And they also build a bridge between people, they create empathy, they help us to connect with one another. And this is really meaningful to any organisation, but particularly to a nonprofit where it's often those emotions that motivate actions. And they help us to see things from other people's perspectives. So an example I often think of is for teenage girls growing up in the UK or the US, might not know what it's like to experience period poverty or how the lack of menstrual hygiene care and products for girls in other countries like rural Kenya could impact their education. But if they heard a story from a girl in Kenya explaining her situation and her perspective, then they can really understand what the issue is. They can understand its impact and its importance. Or you might work in encouraging people to vote, particularly people from marginalised communities. So you might want to use storytelling to bring to life the challenges and barriers that people might face in registering to vote, and use those stories to showcase the problem and the need for the work that you're doing. And storytelling is so important, probably more than ever, as there are so many divisions to overcome. There's a real need to engage donors and supporters. So by really leveraging its power, you can engage your audience, you can help them to understand what your community is going through. And it also provides a really powerful way to elevate the voices of your communities and position your service users' voices within mainstream platforms and help them to tell their own stories. And when told ethically, storytelling can be a safe space for people who want to share their lived experiences and their own opinions as well. And it's really important to be sensitive in your storytelling, sensitive to the type of language that you're using, be aware of the potential they have to make a difference, and make sure you're doing so in a safe and empowering way. And that's something we'll talk about in a lot more detail at our next session on ethical storytelling. But today we're going to really focus on how to make sure your storytelling is impactful. And so Sabina's going to talk us through that now and look at what it is that makes a good story.
Thanks, Jasmine. So what are those different elements that make up a really effective digital story? So what I'll do now is take you through a roadmap that lays out the different elements, or chapters, if you will, of an effective digital story. And it might be that your stories are being showcased on multiple platforms or just one, for example, through social media, maybe in an email, on your website, or all three. But if you can try and capture the different elements in your online storytelling, whichever platform it's on, it will make your stories much more effective and impactful and reach the right people. So speaking to the right people with the right message. But it will also make your stories much more successful at encouraging action. So let's take a look at our storytelling roadmap. Firstly, you need to envision your story. Part of what makes a story so enticing is its structure. Every good story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's a really simple, classic structure. So make sure that your story, even if, like I said, this is just in one social media post or in one email, make sure it covers all three of those components. At the beginning of your story, you set the scene. Your protagonist is in a certain context and has a desire or a goal that they're trying or hoping to achieve. In the middle part of the story, it's all about them pursuing their goal or overcoming their challenge through their engagement with your organisation. And then at the end of the story, it's ideally that the protagonist's life has changed in some way thanks to that challenge that they've overcome or goal that they've achieved as a result of their relationship with your organisation. So it is important to think about that three-part structure to your story, that beginning, middle, and end. And it does seem really simple and quite obvious sometimes, but quite often stories can be missing parts of this structure, which can then leave your viewer or your email reader or your social media follower feeling a bit confused. So make sure your story incorporates those three elements. And then the second stop on our roadmap is our main character. So I've mentioned the idea of a protagonist or that main character. So we know that people care about people. So it's really important to give a face to your work. So as well as having that structure to your story, centering it around a main character is really essential to good storytelling. Characters give your audience someone to identify with and somebody to root for. It's really important to have a key character that your audience can connect with and they can resonate with. And it also helps, as I said, to humanize your work and bring that face to your organization and your services. And you are all doing really amazing work with your communities and on the ground, and can often illustrate this with incredible examples and powerful statistics, which is really great to give your donors and your supporters an idea of the impact of your work. But what will add emotion to that is by showcasing the individuals behind your programs, behind your services, and also even showcasing those individuals behind your organization. Maybe you want to share stories about your staff or your volunteers, the people who make your programs and your projects work. Our third stop is going on that narrative arc. So you want to make sure through your storytelling that you're really guiding readers along a narrative arc. So think about how you can take your readers and your supporters on a journey. So there's that classic narrative structure that can be applied to any story. It normally, as I said, begins with some kind of conflict. There's a challenge or a problem or a goal that someone's working towards. So perhaps it's a challenge that your organization is trying to solve. And it might be period poverty in your local community. It might be access to healthcare for people living with HIV. It might be discrimination. Think about what it is that is that conflict. What is that problem that your organization is trying to solve? And then you want to move on to the action piece. Why is the problem a problem? How is it impacting your community? And how is it even impacting you as an individual? You can take that and then potentially apply it to others. And then there will be a climax element to your story, and usually this will be where your nonprofit comes in. So how are you working to overcome this challenge? What are you doing as an organisation to resolve the issues? And this is where you can spotlight your programs and your projects and your services and showcase some of those impact statistics. Then ideally, you will end with resolution, so showcasing a better future for your community or your main character. And hopefully your story will also end with a call to action. So encouraging your online audiences to be part of the solution in some way, whether that is asking for a donation, asking them to sign up for your newsletter. Think about all the different actions and which call to action makes sense to that particular story. And then that leads on to the next element of the digital storytelling roadmap, which is to offer a solution. You want to provide a solution that moves your mission forwards. It's really important to empower your supporters and your readers to be part of that story and that solution by using language that creates a sense of urgency. So using that supporter-led language, really encouraging them to be part of the collective action. And always try to outline some clear, simple steps for your audience to get involved and take that action. So if you're telling the story of an individual who benefits from your services, you've highlighted the issue that impacts this individual, you've shown how your organisation provides services that impact on this individual's life, and then you end with a clear call to action. So for example, you can support individuals like so-and-so, or you can be part of making this community better, you can be part of building a more equitable future, whatever that call to action might be. But you ideally want, at the end of your story, as I said, whether that's on one platform or multiple, you really want that reader to be inspired to take that action, to be part of that narrative, to be part of your organisation. And it's also really useful to provide additional information at the end of your storytelling process. So think about how you can share data and reports and additional resources to give your story credibility, but also so that your story can gain momentum and keep your reader engaged beyond the narrative. So where can they go to find out more information? How can they stay involved with your organisation? How can they really act on that moment of feeling inspired? So that is the general storytelling roadmap that hopefully you can begin using to structure your online stories. So have a think about your upcoming stories and how you can map out those narratives with these different elements so that you can use that framework. And during that digital storytelling roadmap, I mentioned that your main character of your story, your protagonist, could be a service user or could be somebody from within your organisation. Just to break this down a little bit further, we can divide the types of stories to tell and the main characters to focus on into some different categories. So on your screen now are just some examples of the categories your stories could fall into. Storytelling isn't just about the work that you're doing and the people that you're helping, although that will often be central to it. But it can be useful to think of these 3 different storytelling narratives that you can tell with your digital content. So at first we have the people you serve story. So how have people's lives been authentically transformed by your organization's program? Who are the people that you are serving? With their consent, you can tell their stories. And consent in storytelling is something we'll be looking at in a lot more detail in your ethical storytelling workshop, which is your next live session. And the second one is behind the scenes stories. So this is the inside story of how your organization delivers your programs. This really helps to give a face to your organization. This might be where you spotlight some of your volunteers or some of your program leaders, or even your organization's founder. And then we have personal passion stories. And again, with consent, your donors or your brand champions can share why they're passionate about your organization, why they donate, or why they support you in different ways. And this helps to build a personal connection between your donors and your supporters. So I'll hand you to Jasmine now to take a look at some case studies.
Great, thank you. So yeah, we've looked at the theory behind good storytelling. So now we're going to have a look at some examples from nonprofit organisations to hopefully bring this to life for you. The first one we're going to look at is an example on a video by Feeding America. They use storytelling really effectively, and you can have a look and see if you can spot the structure that Sabina just talked through of kind of going through that digital storytelling roadmap. But also there are some things that we would probably change if we were doing this video. So do pop a message in the chat as it goes through and let us know what you think of the video. So anything you like about it, but anything that you would change as well. So we're going to watch that video now, but do post in the chat and let us know what you would change.
That didn't work, sorry, bear with me.
All right.
A little girl handed me her report card, and she told me my grades are now better because I get breakfast every morning from the food pantry. And it broke my heart. No kid should have to worry about what they're going to eat before they go to school. My mom had to work 2 and 3 part-time jobs just to make ends meet. And once I started having a family, I didn't want to live that way. I used to work for a cable company. I was out in the city doing a job, and I took a piece of coax through my eye. I lost a significant amount of eyesight, and I was left unemployed. Things took a turn for the worse for us. You have to decide whether you buy groceries or you put money on the light bill. Do you power your house, do you heat your house, or do you put food in your kid's stomach? Some days, me and my wife went without eating just to make sure the kids had enough. One thing you want to never do is be able to not provide for your family. And my wife was just insistent on, you know, yes, you have provided for us for years, but we need help right now. So I used to receive assistance here at the food pantry, and I am now actually a director here. The best thing that happened for me was getting hurt on my job and getting me back to the things that I love to do, and that's helping families. Seeing that light come back on once a family has been broken down, it is an amazing feeling, and there's no paycheck that can compensate for that. Families do fall on hard times. We all could be one paycheck away from being in their situation as well.
Great. So what does everybody think? Is there anything that stood out to you as something that you liked? Anything that you would change? Ah, Cherry, straight away, you said, where is the call to action? Absolutely. I think that's the thing that's really unfortunately missing, because it's such a compelling video. And then you get to the end and it's just the end. So yeah, absolutely agree. Is there anything else anyone liked or would change about the video that they'd like to share? Yeah, Jaylan, go for it. Hello.
I loved how he integrated their stories with his story. So just sharing the hardship that he went through, but also like showing what showcasing what the problem was. I think he integrated both of those very nicely.
Yeah, I so agree. And I also thought he then involved like the listener as well, because he said something like, oh, we're all could be one paycheck away, and it just made me really feel like, yeah, you as the viewer had to kind of think about yourself as well. So yeah, no, great point. And I see Elizabeth said, yeah, it's an inspiring personal story. Definitely it ticks that box of, yeah, sharing their own personal experiences, but also helping us think about the great work that the organization does. Anyone else like to share before we move on to our next example? No, we can have a look. Oh, Patricia, yeah, go ahead.
One thing that I loved is actually seeing the face and the as the video was showing the narrative. I think that's one of the things that I've been having issue with, and I think it's very powerful to, as you show the picture, just not the picture, but then the narrative of how the problem is being solved and
Yeah.
creating hope. Because I think that the smile of the child is just priceless.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's such a, like you say, a hope-filled story of, it's not kind of, you've got the whole resolution, which I think is really nice, because then you can think you can make a positive change through more of the work that they're doing as well. But yeah, and
it compels to donate.
Yeah, and on that, actually, I can see Elizabeth shared that this is a series on YouTube, so it may well be that the call to action is in other videos. And I was thinking the same, most likely a video would be shared with a social media post or a caption or something that kind of gives you that link or something else to do. But yeah, great thoughts, everybody. Thank you. We're going to have a look at another video now, and then we've got some non-video examples as well. But this example is from Mothers to Mothers, and they employ women living with HIV as community health workers called Mentor Mothers. And each mentor mother has their own story, and so Mothers to Mothers helps to share these stories on their channels and really amplify their voices. So we're going to have a look at a story from one of their mentor mothers now.
I was actually married at a very young age. I was married at 17, and I was married to an older guy. So 2 years later, into the marriage, I fell pregnant and I went to the clinic. That was when I found out that I was HIV positive. It was not the best moment of my life. For one, I was married to an older guy, so it said I shifted the blame on him. I felt like I was betrayed, like there was something wrong that he did. But luckily for me, I was introduced to Mothers to Mothers. There are mothers who have actually been through the same journey that I was in. They were already empowered, so it was easy for them to empower me also. They're the ones who made me believe in myself again, that taking a blame would not help me. That what was important at that moment was me and the child that was carrying. While I started with Mothers to Mothers, I started out as a community mentor mother. 2 years later into the program, I was promoted into being a site coordinator, and in about space of about 2 months, I was then promoted into being a regional manager. So where I come from, I supervise about 84 mentor mothers. We are more like linking our clients from the community into the facility. The fact that most of them are in very far areas, it says if we are there, we are taking the services to them. That way it is easier for them to know that when they leave their places, going to the facilities, they know the kind of services that they're going to get there. Mothers to Mothers has done a great job on me, making sure that I transform my life, making sure that I deliver HIV-free babies. I do have 2 beautiful girls. The old one is 5 and the youngest is actually 3 months. The fact that I'm giving back, it puts a smile on my face. It makes me want to get up every day to go back to work, because I know that I'm making a difference. My name is Dimpon Teko. I come from Lesotho.
Great. So I always find that such a nice uplifting video to watch. Is there anything anybody would like to share about this video on their thoughts? Any reflections, things that they liked? Caroline shared about having some B-roll videos inserted instead of images between the clips, rather than switching between the colour and the black and white. It's really interesting. Yeah, I think they're quite different in terms of the creative choices. I remember last time I showed these videos, people had some really interesting thoughts on the music as well. I think there's really different ways we can tell the stories creatively. And yeah, I agree, it can be so helpful to have some of that B-roll footage. I suppose it's also helpful if that's not something someone has access to be able to insert other creative elements that they have. But yeah, I think creatively that's a really helpful insight. Thanks for sharing, Caroline. And then another thing we can do is have a look at some examples that aren't videos as well, because that's something that I'm always keen to share, that I think these are some really lovely videos that when we think about the resources that we might have at different organizations, it's not always possible to create a really high production video. But that's also not something that everybody needs to be able to produce as well. I think often having something that's a little bit less polished can be really engaging. I know we mentioned a little bit earlier about authenticity, but that's something that people are always looking to see. And the more we're seeing people move to channels like TikTok and Instagram Reels, people do really resonate with those videos that are a lot more organic, and you can shoot videos on phones. But it also doesn't have to be video as well. So we'll have a quick look at a few different formats just to help you think about how you might tell stories on your different channels. And this can also help you tell the same story in different ways across your different channels as well. So here's an example of an Instagram post where you've got the picture and a quote, and then you've got the long copy in the caption. And this is really helpful because it's not always possible to, get video content, but actually if you've got the story from an individual and they're happy for it to be shared alongside a picture, having that face, as I think we mentioned earlier, can really helpfully bring that story to life. But that as a production piece is really easy to create because all we've had to do is add the quote to the image and then create the story in the caption. So that can be really engaging to do as well. Let's take a look at the next one. This one's a kind of behind the scenes story. So it's just a static example, but the video is of someone with a kind of on their phone doing a selfie video, taking somebody to work with them that day and saying, here's a day in the life of what I do. And I think this can be really nice to really showcase what happens behind the scenes. And that can be helpful for people to build that trust and transparency, to also get a great view of kind of the amazing work that goes on that people probably don't often see. So that's a really nice way to do it. And you can see where they've added text, they've used those kind of in-platform apps, whether that was TikTok or Instagram, just to add some text and captions to it as well. Let's look at the next one. And this one's a longer form. This is a blog article and this is a personal passion story. So it's kind of an interview, but it's written. And again, for kind of capacity and creative purposes, this can be really useful. But also some people will really enjoy to kind of read a nice long blog, and for someone that's got real interest, then that really increases the dwell time where they're going to sit and read through, really engage with that story. You can tell it through quotes and writing and pictures as well. So another way that is a really popular way of sharing stories too. So it's really worth having a think about the stories you already have. So not thinking after today you necessarily have to go and create brand new stories, but what stories do you have, and are there creative ways that you might be able to tell them on your existing channels? I think those are all the examples we've got on that slide, in which case we'll move on to look at digital storytelling best practices, and then I'm going to share with you a tool that we'd like to start using as well.
Yeah, so we have got 5 quick tips and key takeaways to share with you, and those are to make it native, think mobile first, keep it simple, don't be afraid to experiment, and inspire action. So let's go through those one by one. So that first one, make it native. Always think about how you can make your stories relevant for your different digital platforms. Every platform is different, so you cannot tell the same story in exactly the same way across them all. Each of your digital platforms will have different audiences as well, so it is really important to tap into how content appears across each platform. And that doesn't mean that you should be creating a whole new piece of content for each platform, because realistically, we know very few people have got the time to do that. But it is about making those small tweaks in maybe your language, your imagery, or the resources that you're sharing. For example, we know X, formerly known as Twitter, caps your social media captions at 280 characters, so you won't be able to contain a full storytelling narrative within that one post. Whereas Facebook allows you to post much longer captions. You also have to remember people's attention spans on average are less than 2 seconds online, so you do need to adapt your stories to best suit those platforms' quirks and your audiences who use them. So using different languages, different visuals, different facts and figures. And like we said earlier, a digital story can be packaged up differently and showcased as a series of social media posts. And this will keep your audience invested and engaged whilst they decide whether they're going to take that call to action, make that donation or sign up to your newsletter. So you can use one story across, as a campaign story across a couple of weeks, or you can tell one story in one email or one blog post. But the key message here is to think about how you'll communicate those stories on your different channels throughout different times. Up next, digital storytelling is a very visual process. It's not just about that copy, it's about photos, videos, sound bites. So it's really important to always think about how you can optimize your content, not just for desktop, but for mobile devices as well. Far more people, far more of your audience will be viewing your content on their mobile phones rather than a desktop. So it's really important to think mobile first. So have a look at what everything looks like, the size of your text, the color contrast, the detail in your images, the framing of your video. Always test what your content looks like on a mobile phone. And whatever platform you're using to create your content, you should be able to preview it and adapt it to those different device sizes. And as well as ensuring the visual elements of your story works well on a mobile, also think about how people behave when they're on their phones. They're scrolling really fast, they're looking for things to jump out at them and capture their attention. So once you have caught their attention, at that point, they'll then only be skim reading. So you need to ensure your content is easy to skim with those short sentences and regular paragraph breaks. If you are using something like a social media scheduling tool or an email marketing platform, generally all of these tools will allow you to preview your content, like I said. So do check your structure, make sure any infographics are clear and easy to read on a small screen, make sure your content is accessible. And so speaking of social media tools, if you haven't yet used the Lightful social platform, we do recommend taking some time after this session to take advantage of that tool, because that allows you to see what your social media posts like before you post it. Number 3, you also want to keep your storytelling simple. And I know there is a lot to package into your stories. You want to identify a challenge, pose a solution, have your main character go on their journey. So there's lots of content to share. But it is important to think about how to keep your stories clear and concise. So make it brief yet informative. And that is a real balancing act. And, we mentioned earlier that the average attention span online is just under 2 seconds. And that is a stat from Facebook, but it's not very different for each platform. So it's really important that your story grabs your audience's attention straight away. And once you have made that impact within those initial couple of seconds, your audience will be much more likely to engage in your full post. And if you also think about how captions are displayed on Facebook and Instagram, on those longer posts, most of the body of a caption is hidden and the user has to click on, continue reading to see the full caption. So you really need to make that first sentence or two work really hard. And one way you can do that is in your first few words is either to ask a question. Questions are a really good way of making people stop and think, or you could share a key statistic and think about those key power words that really grab someone's attention. And with email, it's also really good to test out different email subject lines. There are tools that can help you test how attractive your subject line is, but that subject line is what is going to be the make or break between somebody opening your email to even take a look at that storytelling content. So one I always recommend is OmniSend. We can pop a link to that in the chat if you'd like to test it out. But lots of email marketing platforms have this built in as well. So that brings me on to my next point, really, which is don't be afraid to experiment. So as I said, digital storytelling is really visual and it's a really creative medium. So don't be afraid to test out new ideas, because testing out those ideas is how you can gather insights into how well your content has performed. And you can then learn from those insights what worked well, what didn't work well, and then put that into practice with your next piece of content. So digital storytelling is a really constant cycle of testing and learning, and it's how you'll get a better understanding of the different content that your online audience responds to. So don't be disheartened if you don't achieve your goals straight away. And lastly, always think about the action that you want your audience to take. That action will define the purpose of your piece of content. Do you want your call to action to be for your audience to donate? If you do, make sure that the link to donate is easy to follow, and that your story really motivates people to take that action using those techniques we talked through earlier. And is the action you want people to take to sign up to your newsletter or to learn more about a particular topic? If so, include a link so your audience can find out more. Or is the action you want to ask people to comment on your social media posts and have a conversation about your story? In that case, your call to action shouldn't be to take people away from the social media post by including a link. Instead, it should be asking a question that inspires your audience to respond. Whatever your content's call to action is, it will give a clear next step for your audience to take and an opportunity to act on that moment of inspiration. So those are a few speedy best practices when it comes to digital storytelling, and they hopefully might be something that you're already incorporating into your content, or perhaps some of those are new to you and inspire you to go away and experiment with them. So next we have an exciting tool to share with you, so I'll hand you back to Jasmine for that.
Great, thank you very much. So yeah, I know that some of you will have seen a little bit about our digital toolkit if you attended the Coffee and Collaborate session last week, or if you noticed it drop into your inbox on Friday. But I want to share a new toolkit with you all, and creating this toolkit, this initiative was made possible thanks to generous funding from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and they funded the creation of a brand new toolkit designed to empower nonprofits with the digital skills and confidence they need to amplify their impact online and to drive positive change. And so I'll just start sharing my screen and you can have a look at it, or you can follow along, as I know that Roshan has just posted a link to it as well. And I've already heard that some of you have been busy using it to review your stories, which is amazing. So the idea is that this is a toolkit that will be freely available to nonprofits, whether or not they're on Bridge. They don't have to already be a Lightful social platform user, but this tool will be a one-stop shop for planning digital campaigns, creating their strategy, campaign plans, and then sharing impactful stories. So I know I covered this in a demo at the Coffee and Collaborate session, but you can have a quick look over here. I'll just show you where to find your digital strategy section is here, and that will look quite familiar to you if you've been working on your strategies on the platform already. We have a campaign planner that is in the works, and our developers are working on releasing that really soon, which is really, really exciting. But what we thought would be really useful to look at today is our storytelling checklist. So this is something that you are welcome to start using straight away, and it aligns really nicely with the idea of looking at storytelling best practices and making sure that your stories are created in a way that are going to be really impactful as well. So I'm just going to pull up an example for you. If anyone does have any examples, I know that Cherry is going to send me an example as well, which is amazing. But also feel free to go ahead and start using this now and test out one of your social posts if you've got one open. But what you can do is go into the storytelling checklist and we can click to start a new story. And for the meantime, I think I'll just take one from this organization. This is a British organisation working as the Royal National Institute of Blind People. And so I'm going to share that. And what it is actually a transcript of a video. So you can share any type of written story. And they're always really great to follow on social media, actually. But whatever copywriting that you have, you can paste it into here. And you can click Get AI Feedback. And if you've used any of our other AI tools, you'll recognise this Lumi chatbot on the right-hand side, which comes up with some suggestions. And what we're doing is using the checklist of best practices to go through and review your story. So the first one it's got is about center your story on a character. It's saying that the analysis is here, it's very effectively applied, but it talks about how that's been applied. And actually in this instance, there's no suggestions because this is already implemented, which is really great because that's the other thing that sometimes can happen with AI is getting in that loop of keep making changes. But this is more of a checklist to see if you're fulfilling different criteria. The second one is to draw in your audience as soon as possible. And the analysis says this is somewhat effectively applied, but it could benefit from a stronger hook. And it's got some suggestions as well, which I think is really helpful. So what you can do is review those suggestions and decide whether or not you want to implement them, or if actually you have the context for the story that you're telling and you can decide which bits of feedback to implement. And that's actually the thing here. We've got an opportunity to review your content, get that external feedback, but it's not rewriting it for you, because really it's about you learning to work on your stories and do something in a way that's really impactful. And also to have that point of having a human in the loop, as we often refer to at Lightful, of having somebody to say, yes, that's useful feedback, let's implement it, or actually, no, that's fine, we understand that this is relevant to our audience specifically. But you can see it goes through these 5 different points, and then you can edit your story and you can get the next round of feedback, and it will come up here again, so you can see the different rounds of feedback and the changes that you've implemented. So I'd really recommend you having a go. Just put in some stories and see what type of feedback it gives to you. Hopefully that's something you'll find helpful, but would really value any feedback that you have, whether you find it useful, if you've got any suggestions for improvements, please do share with us. And I think, Cherry, thank you. You said you sent me some examples, which haven't yet come through, but I'll be really keen to try them out in the tool as and when they do. So thank you so much. But yeah, we'd love everyone to go and have a go and see what you think. But now back to you, Sabina.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited about that tool. I'm looking forward to using it in my own work as well. So before we do move on to our next steps, we have got a short task we're asking everybody to complete, and this is to complete your midpoint survey. So I would just like to say, do not go away yet. We're just going to spend a few minutes on this, and then we'll go through your important next steps. So what I would love everybody on the call right now to do is to scan that QR code that's on your screen, or we have also just posted it in the chat, so you can follow the link from that, and take 5 minutes or so to complete that survey. Get it ready and open now, and then you can do it hopefully straight after this masterclass. And we do ask every individual taking part in the Bridge programme to complete this step, because we do share the results with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And we also use your feedback from the survey to tailor your programme. So the second half of the programme is all really based on the feedback that you give us at this stage. So the more detail you can share now, the more we can make the programme really tailored to your needs. So thank you to everybody who is following that link or scanning the QR code right now. We really, really appreciate that. So let me go now through your next steps to take after today's session. So obviously that first one is to do your survey, but then it is to identify storytelling opportunities for your organisation and use our storytelling checklist and that tool that Jasmine has just demonstrated for you. We also have some e-learning courses on Lightful Academy we recommend you take some time to complete, as they really take what we've covered today to the next level. There's also one on there which is all examples of storytelling content from other nonprofits across the world. So a really great way of seeing some different examples than the ones that we've had time to just show you today. And then please do book a one-to-one so that we can work together to identify your storytelling opportunities and help create that storytelling content. And then in your next workshop, we'll be looking at ethical storytelling, so including informed consent, what ethical storytelling looks like, and some unethical practices to avoid. So that storytelling workshop is on the 24th of October, and we will also introduce you then to our Storytelling with Ethical Impact tool. And we also have got a bonus webinar coming up. So I'm sure you've actually seen these details already, but just a little reminder for you, you're invited to our global networking event on Tuesday, the 29th of October at 2 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. So this is open to Bridge participants, both present and those from our alumni society. And we're going to be gathering together to network and work together on your year-end fundraising campaigns. So it's a really unique experience where you can collaborate and also hear how other organisations are approaching their holiday season to engage their donors. This is something you do need to register for, so please do follow the link to secure your spot by registering. So we'll post that in the chat for you, and it's also coming out over email. We hope to see many of you there because it's always a massive hit. We've done a few of these this year, and this will be our last one of the year. And then a speedy reminder about your community groups. So as you may have heard us say before, we have got a Facebook group, which is open to Bridge participants, both past and present. So a great place to collaborate and share experiences with other nonprofits. Then we also have got your dedicated WhatsApp group where you can hear updates about your Bridge programme, receive notices, ask questions, that kind of thing. Let's open up the floor now to your questions. Would anybody like to post a question in the chat or come off mute, raise your hand, let us know any questions that we can help answer? And I think whilst you are thinking about your questions, I'm just going to launch your final polls for today. So firstly, asking how confident you're now feeling about your organisation's storytelling. And then I'll launch another one in a minute asking for a bit of feedback. But I'll stop talking now and let you ask your questions. Would anybody like to ask any final questions? Yes, I realise we haven't had time to do our quiz today. So what we're going to do is we're going to post the quiz questions in your WhatsApp chat. So keep an eye on that later today. I think Jasmine's going to be our quiz master over in your WhatsApp, which will be a lot of fun, I'm sure. Oh, I can see we've actually had an anonymous question in the Q&A asking, how do you share stories when people can't share their identity for security reasons? Yeah, that's a great question. It's definitely something we'll be talking a lot more about in your workshop on the 24th of October, which is all about ethical storytelling. But a couple of things that pop to mind when thinking about protecting people's identities is, you know, storytelling does not need to be that face-to-camera style of content. It can be with people's images withheld, or using kind of stock imagery instead of focusing on the actual storytelling person themselves. I would always recommend, when you are, you know, changing names or identities for those security reasons, being really transparent about it in your content, saying, you know, we've withheld this person's name or their image to protect that identity within the story is a great way of kind of aiding that transparency. So, you know, using a stock image, an illustration, just kind of blurring faces can also work, and then changing their names too within the storytelling content. But like I say, always being really transparent when you are doing so. I hope that answers your question. Would anybody else like to ask any questions? Okay, well, if anything pops to mind after we wrap up today, you can always ask us in the WhatsApp chat or drop us an email to support@Lightful. I have launched all of our polls today, so all that remains to say is thank you for taking your next steps after today. I hope you're excited to try out that new tool that Jasmine demonstrated, and we look forward to seeing you at your upcoming one-to-ones and in your storytelling with ethical, no, I'm saying that wrong, ethical storytelling workshop on the 24th of October. Take care, everybody, and see you very soon. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone. See you soon. Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.